Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 2, Reincarnation, Duty and Yoga. Contents of the Gita summarized. Text 1. Sanjay Uvacha Tam Tatha Kripaya Ashru Purna Kulekshanam Vishidantam Idam Vakyam Uvacha Madhusudanaha.
Sanjaya said, seeing Arjuna full of compassion, his mind depressed, his eyes full of tears, Madhusudhana, Krishna, spoke the following words.
Text 2. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Kutastva Idam Vishame Samupasthitam Anarya Jushtam Asvagyam Akirtikaram Arjuna.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, my dear Arjuna, how have these impurities come upon you? They are not at all befitting a man who knows the value of life. They lead not to higher planets, but to infamy.
Text 3. Klaibyam Asmagama Partha Naitatvayu Papadyate Kshudram Hridaya Dorbalyam Tyaktva Parantapa.
O son of Pratha, do not yield to this degrading impotence. It does not become you. Give up such petty weakness of heart and arise, O chastiser of the enemy.
Text 4. Arjuna Vacha Katham Bhishmam Aham Sankhe Dronam Cha Madhusudana Ishubhi Pratiyotisyami Pujarhavari Sudana.
Arjuna said, O killer of enemies, O killer of Madhu, how can I counterattack with arrows in battle men like Bhisma and Drona, who are worthy of my worship?
Text 5. Guru Nahatvahi Mahanubhavan Shreyo Bhoktum Bhakshamapi Haloke Hatvartha Kamamstu Guru Nihaiva Bhunjiya Bhogan Rudhira Pradigdhan.
It would be better to live in this world by begging than to live at the cost of the lives of great souls who are my teachers. Even though desiring worldly gain, they are superiors. If they are killed, everything we enjoy will be tainted with blood.
Text 6. Nachaitadvidmaha Kataranagariyo Yadvajayema Yadivanu Yaneva Hatvanajiji Devastita Pramukhe Dhartarashtraha.
Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we killed the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield.
Text 7. Karpanya dosho pahata svabhavaha Prichhami tvam dharma samudha chetaha Yashreyah sya nishchitam bruhitanme Shishyastiham shalimam tvam prapannam.
Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me.
Text 8. Nahi prapashyami mama panudyat यच्छोकमुच्छोषणमिन्द्रियाणाम् अवाप्य भूमा वसपत्नमृद्धं राज्यं सुराणामपि चाधिपत्यम्.
I can find no means to drive away this grief which is drying up my senses. I will not be able to dispel it, even if I win a prosperous, unrivaled kingdom on earth with sovereignty like the demigods in heaven.
Text 9. Sanjay Uvacha Evam Mukta Rishikesham Gudakeshaha Parantapaha Nayotsya iti Govindam Uktva Tushnim Prabhuvaha.
Sanjaya said, having spoken thus, Arjuna, chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent.
Text 10. Tam Uvacha Rishikeshaha Rahasan Iva Bharata Senayorubhayor Madhye Ishidantam Midam Vachaha.
O descendant of Bharata, at that time Krishna, smiling in the midst of both the armies, spoke the following words to the grief-stricken Arjuna.
Text 11. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Ashochanam Vashochastvam Pragyavadamscha Bhashase Tatasu Nagatasunshcha Nanushocanti Panditaha.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, while speaking learned words, you are mourning for what is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead.
Text 12. Natvevaham jatunasam natvam nemi janadipaha nachaiva na bhavishyamaha sarve vayam atah param.
Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any one of us cease to be.
Text 13. Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tatha dehantara prapti dhirastatcha namuhyati.
As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change.
Text 14. Matra spashastu kaunteya sitoshna sukhadukada agamapayino nityas tamsitikshasva bharata.
O son of Kunti, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of winter and summer seasons. They arise from sense perception, O Scion of Bharata, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed.
Text 15. Yam hina vyathayantyete purusham purushashabha samadukha sukham dhiram somrita paya kalpate.
O best among men, Arjuna, the person who is not disturbed by happiness and distress and is steady in both is certainly eligible for liberation.
Text 16. Na sato vidyate bhavo na bhavo vidyate sataha ubhayorapi drishtontas vanayostadvadarshibihi.
Those who are seers of the truth have concluded that of the non-existent, the material body, there is no endurance, and of the eternal, the soul, there is no change. This they have concluded by studying the nature of both.
Text 17. Avinashi tu tadvidhi yena sarvam idam tatam vinasham avyayasyasya na kaschit kartumarhati.
That which pervades the entire body, you should know to be indestructible. No one is able to destroy that imperishable soul.
Text 18. Antavanta ime deha nitya sokta sharirinaha anashino prameyasya tasmad yudhyasva bharata.
The material body of the indestructible, immeasurable, and eternal living entity is sure to come to an end. Therefore, fight, O descendant of Bharata.
Text 19. Ya enam viti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhoto na vichanito nayam hanti na hanyate.
Neither he who thinks the living entity the slayer, nor he who thinks it is slain, is in knowledge. For the self slays not, nor is slain.
Text 20. Ne jayate mriyate va kadachin nayam bhutva bhavita vana bhuyaha ajo nitya shasvato yam purano na hanyate hanyamani sharire.
For the soul, there is neither birth nor death at any time. He has not come into being, does not come into being, and will not come into being. He is unborn, eternal, ever existing, and primable. He is not slain when the body is slain.
Text 21. Veda vinashinam nityam ya enam ajamavyayam katham sa purusha partha kam ghatayati hantikam.
O Partha, how can a person who knows that the soul is indestructible, eternal, unborn, and immutable kill anyone or cause anyone to kill?
Text 22. Vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya navani grinati naroparani tatha sharirani vihaya jirnani anyani samyati navani dehi.
As a person puts on new garments, giving up old ones, the soul similarly accepts new material bodies, giving up the old and useless ones.
Text 23. Nainam chindanti shastrani nainam dahati pavakaha na chainyam kledayantyaapo na shoshayati marutaha.
The soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind.
Text 24. Achedyoyam adahyoyam akledyo shoshaevacha nitya sarvagata sthano achaloyam sanatanaha.
This individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same.
That's it, right? Chapter 24.
Yes.
Yes. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, both of you. Vinay Devi Mataji was very nice. I think your pronunciation was fantastic. Faultless, actually. I was listening right the way through when you pronounced every Sanskrit word very nicely. And some of the verses you obviously knew because you were very fluent in some of those. So fantastic. Thank you so much. It was very nice. And Santosh Mataji, as usual, very eloquent, very, very nice and narrated. You know, your English was like you could sit there and you can actually imagine things happening right in front of your eyes the way you were describing it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna. Thank you. Okay, I'll stop sharing this. Bring up my other screen. Okay, so just give me a second. All right. Okay, just one more setting. Great, okay, we're all ready to go. So we are continuing reading the wonderful chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. Today we're on text 9. So as usual, we will just do the summary of the chapter so far, which is only one session, actually one section, which is 2:1 to 2:10. So tomorrow this section will finish, and then Krishna will actually start to speak the Gyan from text 11. So far it's been questions from like doubts from Arjuna and then surrender to Krishna. And now today he's going to stop speaking, and then Krishna will take over. Before Krishna takes over, there'll be one more verse spoken by Sanjay, and then we go into the real teaching of the Bhagavad Gita. So today's verse is 2:9. Before we start, I'll do the invocation prayers. Om Ajnanati Mirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Charu Swami Niti Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pashacya Devashatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 9. Sanjaya Uvacha Evam Mukva Rishikesham Gurakesha Parantapaha Na Yotsya Iti Govindam Uktva Tushnim Babhuvaha. Sanjay said, having spoken thus, Arjun, the chastiser of enemies, told Krishna, Govinda, I shall not fight, and fell silent. So just looking at the verse, Tushnim, so that Tushnim, that N has got a dot underneath. So instead of saying na, that's the soft ana. So Tushnim. And then the other point, a small point really, is that the third line where it says Gudakesha. So Gudakesha Parantapaha. So what happens is, because there is a AH with a dot underneath also in Gudakesha, so we tend to pronounce that and say Gudakesha Parantapaha. But actually what the speakers of Sanskrit, what they say is in a verse like this, so the double sound of aha, like tapaha, only happens when that is at the end of a line. If it's in the middle, for example, in this case, Gurakeshaha, then we don't do the double sound, but the correct pronunciation of that line would be Gurakesha, so shah like ha, Gurakesha parantapaha, like that. So just a small point there. So we come back to the verse actually. Let's do the purport, and then we'll come back to the verse. I think that's the best way to do this. So who's going to read the verse? Let's see who's there. Okay, last name. Ila Mataji, are you there? Ila Mataji, if you can unmute and read the purport, please.
I'm here. Thank you.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Dhritarashtra must have been very glad to understand that Arjuna was not going to fight and was instead leaving the battlefield for the begging profession. But Sanjaya disappointed him again in relating that Arjuna was competent to kill his enemies. Parantapaha. Although Arjuna was, for the time being, overwhelmed with the false grief due to family affection, he surrendered unto Krishna, the supreme spiritual master, as a disciple. This indicated that he would soon be free from the false lamentation resulting from family affection and would be enlightened with perfect knowledge of self-realization or Krishna consciousness, and would then surely fight. Thus, Dhritarashtra's joy would be frustrated, since Arjuna would be enlightened by Krishna and would fight to the end.
Thank you. Thank you, 11. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. So, right. So before we move on, we just go back to the verse. If I can make my PowerPoint go backwards. Yeah. So here, a few things we can. This is quite an interesting verse. This one. So, uktva. Uktva means spoken. Somebody spoke. So uktva, you can see it's twice here. Evam uktva rishikesha. And then later on, last line, uktva tushnim babhuvaha. So uktva. So one uktva refers to what Arjuna has spoken so far. All the complaints, all the points he was making. That's what it refers to. That Arjuna spoke that, and now after speaking that, he's saying this to Krishna. And the next uktva means that, okay, after saying this words, these few words, and then tushnim babhuva, he then fell silent. So that's how the two uktvas are there. And then interesting, you got see, normally in a verse, you have one name. So Krishna would say Partha or Arjuna, or different names he would address, Arjuna, Kaunteya, like that. And Arjuna also, and if he would say, he'd call him Rishikesh, he would call him best of Rishnis, whatever. But it would be one name. Here, there are two names for each of them. So you got Rishikesham. Rishikesham refers to, of course, Krishna. Then Gurakesha refers to Arjuna. And then Parantapa, again Arjuna. And Govindam, again Krishna. So it's a unique verse in this way that you got two names each time. We'll go into a little bit more detail about these names and the reason why. Tushnim, so basically important word here, Tushnim. Arjuna fell silent. See Krishna patiently listening to Arjuna. Many people would have that much patience. Arjuna has been speaking right from the early part of chapter 1. And now even then, after in the early part of chapter 2, he was still speaking until text 8. So Krishna's patiently waiting. So he fell silent. Important thing is he has to fall silent so Krishna can start speaking. You can't speak when somebody is talking. So they have to, stop for you to get your words in. Sometimes we get a situation where somebody's asking a question, and then that question, they perhaps not very sure in their own mind. So what they do is they repeat the question 2 or 3 times in different ways, and the speaker is patiently waiting to sort of for them to fall silent so he can give the answer. So my Guru Maharaj sometimes would say in a situation like this, that somebody would start, putting too many words into the questions, and he would say, I got it. Yes, I got your point. I got your point. And then, of course, most people would then realize and keep quiet, but some would still continue speaking, and Guru would say loudly, I got your point, like that, So yeah, so you have to be silent for you to then hear the reply from Krishna. Rishikesha, master of the senses. So Krishna is the master of senses. So here, well, one thing that I forget whose commentary I was reading. Virijan Prabhu, was it Virijan Prabhu, or was it perhaps Baldev Vidyabhushan? One of them I was reading earlier today, and they mentioned that indirectly, see, many times Sanjay would use this address, Rishikesha, for Krishna. And so he was saying that, indirectly, he's saying to Dhritarashtra that, you are already lacking one material sense because he didn't have the sense of sight. So he's reminding again and again to Dhritarashtra, okay, you may be lacking, you may be lacking material sight, but if you surrender to Krishna, maybe you'll be blessed with your spiritual vision at least. So spiritually, you will not be blind. So I thought that was an interesting point that he made. So moving on. Okay, purport we've already done. Here on the purport, Prabhupada starts with Dhritarashtra must have been very glad to understand that Arjuna was not going to fight and was instead leaving the battlefield for the begging profession. So it said that as soon as Dhritarashtra heard the last verse, Arjuna sort of not going to fight. He declared, I'm not going to fight. So in his mind, he was very happy, of course. Right? He is full of joy, thinking, okay, now this is it. That means that my sons will not have to fight, and without any fight, we're going to have the whole kingdom. We don't have to share anything. And before he stood up to go and start celebrating, Sanjay then, when he mentioned this verse, he then pointedly gave him these warnings, right? These are the warnings he's giving. He's saying, yes, Gudakesha, he calls Arjun Gudakesha. Gudakesha, what does Gudakesha mean? It's there in the translation as well. Anybody?
One who can, sorry.
Yes, thank you. Conqueror of sleep. So, conqueror of sleep. So this is two ways again we can. So conqueror of sleep or conqueror of darkness. And darkness also means ignorance. So it could be anything. So Gudakesha can be referred to all three, right? And also it's explained that this word Gudakesha, of course, is a sandhi of two words. So when you break up this sandhi like Gudaka refers to sleep, and Isha, of course, the controller. So that way, Gudakesha means one who controls sleep, right? Control or conquers sleep. But then, so this Arjun, it is explained when Arjun went on a pilgrimage, he went about for 12 years, he was out on a pilgrimage, and it is said that he did not sleep for all 12 years. And this is how he conquered sleep, apparently. But then the other way you can break down this word is Guda and Kesha. So Guda would means thick. Kesha means hair. So also it could mean Gudakesha, because Arjun had also a very thick flock of hair. So it will also mean one with thick flock of hair. But in this particular text, more and more is more than sleep. It's actually conqueror of ignorance, really. That he will soon is warning Dhritarashtra that because he's Gurakesh, he will soon come out of this temporary confusion. So don't start rejoicing yet. Don't start celebrating yet. And coming back to conquering sleep, I was thinking actually that Prabhupada himself, actually to a certain extent, he conquered sleep, right? Who can tell me what was Prabhupada's routine, like a daily routine? Does anybody know?
I think Hare Krishna Mukunda-Hari.
Yes, Balika Mataji.
As far as I understand, Srila Prabhupada used to rest 1 hour during the day and 2 hours at night time, and then he used to get up and write.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's true. Thank you, Balika Mataji. So like, wherever he was in the world, he would go to sleep at a certain time, wake up, within 1 or 2 hours. There are different accounts. Some say 2 hours, some say 3 hours, some even say 1 hour. And we'll see in a minute about the 1 hour. But so he used to have very, very little sleep. And then rest of the time he would wake up and start translating. So you can see how much he sacrificed so that we would all have his books, right? For years he did this. Ever since he started translating, he was doing this. And again, the Goswamis, apparently it is said that the Goswamis also, they slept hardly 2 or 3 hours in the night. And they also spent the rest of the time writing. As you know, Goswamis profusely gave us all the philosophy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu only gave us 8 verses in writing, but then he left it to the Goswamis to give us all the wonderful books. So the Goswamis spent all their time doing that. So this is also conqueror of sleep. So Prabhupada here in this, this is like a morning walk talk, and he's talking about this. So let's read what it says. Can anybody, Palika Mataji, perhaps you can read this?
Sorry, I need to see the whole screen. Let me.
Oh, you're not seeing it properly?
Yeah, and now I can see. Yeah.
Okay.
It's in Morning Walk, 5th of July, 1976, Washington, D.C. Eating, sleeping, sex, and defense. Ashra, Nidra, Bhaya, Maitre, Mithuna, they are required. So long we have got this body, we require to eat something, we require to sleep sometimes, we require a little sense gratification, and we require defense. But it should be minimized, not increased. That is tapisha. In the human life, this is possible. This is possible. Nidrana, what's that? Vikaradi, vijetu. One can conquer over these things by practice. The more we minimize these ahar, nidra, bhaya, mithuna, this means we are advanced in spiritual taste. It is practiced. My personal life, I don't sleep at night time. And nowadays at most 1 hour. Yes, but I take rest in the daytime, at least 2-3 hours. So it is not that I am sleeping 1 hour. I sleep 3 to 4 hours total. But if practice, it can be reduced, practiced. We see in the life of Goswamis, about them, it is said, Nidra Vihara Khadi Vijete. They conquered over sleeping, eating. If we conquer over eating, then we can conquer over sleeping and other things also. If we can control over this tongue, then we can control over the other senses very easily. That is the fact. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Palika Mataji. So there you go. See, Prabhupada himself is talking about his routine, right? Sleeping just 1 hour, he says, in the night, and then, okay, in the daytime. But we know that he says he slept 2 or 3 hours in the day. But I do know, if you know, read his books, he didn't really have that much time in the day. There were so many people visiting him and all that. So he didn't even have that luxury to sleep every day. Maybe once in a while he would sleep, but otherwise he would be awake all day. But this is the kind of sacrifices these wonderful devotees have made for this. So in the end, he's speaking about controlling our tongue, right? And there's a prayer we sing every day, maybe 2 or 3 times. Anybody know this, which prayer we're talking about?
The when we take our prasad,
Yes, yes. Sharira
Sharira
vidya
vidya jal jadinti
jale
tai.
diyata hai kal jive pele vishaya sagare dharma de jivati loba moy siddurmati tage jata katina sansare. So here it says the material body is a network of ignorance, right? A network of ignorance. And the senses are one's deadly enemies. The senses are our real enemies. For they throw the soul into the ocean of material sense enjoyment. And among the senses, the tongue is the most voracious and verily wicked, Prabhupada says in that translation. It is very difficult to conquer the tongue in the world. So our senses, see, the thing is, tongue, of course, is the most difficult because the tongue performs 2 functions, right? Vibrating sound and tasting. All the other senses do one job, but the tongue does 2. That's why the tongue is more voracious. So, talking about the senses, just a couple of weeks ago, we had our dear Radhakanta Prabhu at our Sangha, at the Harinam Sangha. And he sang a beautiful Gujarati kavita about the senses. And I'm going to try and attempt to sing it. He of course, Radhakanta Prabhu is an amazing singer. I won't be surprised if he actually composed this himself. I didn't ask him, but I'm going to try. So for all the non-Gujarati speakers, I'm very sorry, but I'm sure there are quite a few Gujarati speakers. So do you mind? What I'll do is I will explain it again in English so that you don't miss out. But do you mind if I do this Gujarati, try and do Gujarati kavita?
Please, thank you.
Please, Prabhuji. Thank
All
you.
right, so let me see if I can get it right. It's okay. And Gujarati speakers will get the meaning as you listen. So listen carefully what it's saying, right? It's saying, Bhamaro sugandhe kamare paseche patangiya rupa mahi bareche Vishayan dahati patakaya khade नेतर फड़ी मरे छे माछली जीव स्वादे मुरली नादे मृगलो बंधातो मुरली नादे मृगलो बंधातो मुरली नादे मृगलो बंधातो पण पांचे विषय मा एक मानव फसातो. So let me now try and explain.
Very nice, Prabhuji, very nice.
Thank you. So bhamaro means. Anybody?
Is it
Honeybee.
Bumblebee?
Bumblebee.
Bumblebee. So how so I think, okay, the point of this kavita, this poem, is that all the living entities, of course, we have all the senses, and each living entity has one particular sense which gets them into trouble, right? They call it the Achilles heel, right? So there is one particular sense that would get into trouble. So the bhamaro, which means bumblebee, the sense of smell, because they smell the pollen, and they enter kamare. Kamare means lotus flower. So smelling the pollen, they go into the lotus flower. And then what does the lotus flower do at night? It closes, right? By the time it opens in the morning, generally speaking, that bumblebee is dead inside. So that sense of smell got that bumblebee into trouble. Then patangiya means
Butterfly.
Butterfly.
Yeah, or a moth, right? Or butterfly. So rupa mahi bareche. That means they get burnt because of rupa, because of their attraction of sight. They see bright lights and they get attracted, and they don't know it's actually a fire or a very hot object, and they go and die in there. So Pamaro sugande kamare fase che, patangya rupa mahi bade che. They die like that. And Vishayanda hati patakaya khade. So Vishayanda. So it's again a sandhi here. Vishaya and anda. Vishaya means desire, and being mad after desire. The elephant. Okay, how is an elephant captured? Does anybody know?
I think they keep
Yes,
the
Yeah.
female
Yeah.
elephant, and then they make a hole,
Yes.
and then that's how they fall down in there.
Exactly.
They
So
go
the,
after senseless.
thank you. The hunters they what they do to trap a male elephant, they would keep a female elephant at a distance, and then in between the two, they would make a big hole which is covered with straw. So when the he elephant sees the she elephant, then Vishayande, which means blinded by desire, starts moving towards that she elephant, and what happens? Patakaya khade falls into the hole. That way it's trapped. Netarafari mareche machali jiva swade. Tarafari is the fish it dies struggling because of the taste, because it sees the worm, doesn't see the hook, and goes for the worm, and it's then going to leave his body. And then Murali Nanade Mragalo Bandato. So a deer, Mragalo, a deer. How is a deer trapped? A hunter would play wonderful, sweet tunes on the flute, right? And by the attraction of this flute, these deer actually get frozen. They are so captivated by the sound of music, they are frozen. And when they're frozen, that's when the hunter moves in and ties him up. Rugalina nade mragalo bandato pan pache vishayama ekamanava fasato. But here, all these different living entities, they've got one sense that get into trouble. But all five of them get the human beings into trouble. So I thought that was very nice. Like I say, Prabhu probably made it himself. So moving on. Parantapa. So Cheshtaisa, or the conqueror of enemies. So again, there's this is so that this class you don't get excited because he's going to soon recover. He is a conqueror of enemies. So right now, his enemy, Arjuna's enemy, is his mind. His mind is confused, but he will conquer soon. So don't get too excited. Get faster. And then here in letter on Bhagavad Gita 2:1-11 in South Africa, he's writing in 1975. Parantapa means one who gives trouble to the enemies. This is the material world. A Kshatriya cannot behave like a Brahmana. To excuse a Brahmana, like a Brahmana to excuse that. Brahmana's business is to excuse. Kshama Rupa Tapasvina. Those who are tapasvi, they can excuse. But those who are in the governmental post, to make justice, there is no question of excuse. Life for life. You have killed one man, you must be killed. This is justice. A Brahmana, he may excuse. All right, you have killed my man, never mind, I excuse you. That is a Brahmana's business. But a Kshatriya, the government, the ruling power, he cannot do so. It is his mercy. It is the government's mercy when a murderer is hanged. That is the injunction of Manu Samhita. So Parantapa, you are a Kshatriya, your business is to punish the unjust. So according to Manu Samhita, if somebody has committed murder in this life, then for him to be also sentenced to death is actually a favor to him, because that way that person settles his account in this life. Otherwise, if he gets away with it, for example, and he doesn't get sentenced to death, he will have to carry that into his next birth. And then, of course, he will have a lot more, not just in the next birth, but on the way to the next birth, he will have a lot more suffering. So this is why it says it is a favor that he's doing, right? So, yeah. So the material nature is such a place that even somebody who's Gurakesha and Parantapa like Arjuna, even he is brought down to his knees just by this illusion and ignorance. That's the point. Then according to the Vedic injunctions, there are 6 kind of aggressors who can be killed. Do you know? I think we've done that before, so we'll run that. We're running out of time, so we'll go. So a poison giver, one who gives poison. In this picture, you see Bhima after Duryodhan poisoned him and threw him in the river. He's just going down. He's tied up and he's going down. Bhima. So we see how he's tied up to the Kauravas here, right? So the Bhima giving poison to Arjun. Then one who sets a fire to the house. So again, Duryodhan had arranged this fire in the house of Lak so that all the Pandavas and the mother would have been killed. One who attacks with deadly weapons. There you go. The whole Kaurava army was ready to kill all the Pandavas. One who plunders riches. You know, they took over the whole kingdom. All the riches they took over themselves. One who occupies another's land. There you go. Dhritarashtra, the meaning of the word Dhritarashtra is holding on to somebody else's land. So Dhritarashtra and Duryodhan holding on to the land unfairly. And then one who kidnaps a wife. So here they it was in the wager of the dice game, but they then treated Draupadi so badly. Right? So such aggressors are at once to be killed, and there is no sin incurred by killing such aggressors. So devotees, be careful. This is of course in the Vedas, and this is right, but the country laws are different, so they don't take this literally. You have to worry about the country laws as well. So I don't want somebody to say tomorrow, oh, Mukunda-Hari said, so I'm going to do this. So, right. So but Arjun was a saintly character, and therefore he wanted to deal with them in a saintliness. This kind of saintliness, however, is not for Kshatriyas. So then these are the in the 18th chapter. There's a beautiful verse talking about the duties of the Kshatriya. Kshatriya is Shoryam Tejo Dhriti Daksham Yude Chapya Palayanam Dhanam Ishvara Bhavascha Kshatram Karma Swabhavajam. Says heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership are the natural qualities of work for the Kshatriyas. So see, all these are what they should be doing, not being soft. Generosity here doesn't mean be generous to the enemies. Generosity is meaning be generous to your citizens. But to the enemies, you have to treat them with the harshest possible way. What's the time? He's running away. Okay, let's do one more slide. So Sanjay indirectly informs Dhritarashtra that Arjuna was temporarily overwhelmed, but now he has surrendered, because now in text 7, as we know, Karpanya Dosho Pahata Svabhava, he surrendered to Krishna already, right? So now it's only a matter of time before Krishna instructs him and he finds his way out. So due to the surrender, in the Prabhupada mentions this, Arjuna will get these three things. He will get enlightenment, he will get free from lamentation, and his duty will be reinstated. He will surely fight. So I will, I think, let's see if there's one more. Yeah, okay, lessons. Okay, lessons for us from this verse. Only way to curb lamentation for good for all of us is to take shelter of Krishna like Arjuna did. No other way, no other way, no other way. So devotees, I will stop here. Well, one more thing before I stop. There is today is a special day. It is is it appearance day? I think appearance day. I forget. I always get confused between appearance and disappearance. But it is one of those tithis for Vakreshwar Pandit, a very, very important character in our line. So I'll just quickly mention about him. Vakreshwar Pandit, he was present at the time of Mahaprabhu, and he was in Navadip with him. He was Mahaprabhu in Navadip, and also he was present when Mahaprabhu took sannyas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he also went to Jagannath Puri with Mahaprabhu. And he was a very, very good dancer and a singer. So always, whenever there was a Harinam going on, he would be the front one there. So one time he pleased Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by continuously dancing for 72 hours. That kind of energy he had. So there's a few more things we can say about him, but because of lack of time, we will not go into that. You can read up about him. Very important personality. So we will stop here, devotees. Just a final reminder about the Go to Golok campaign. Please do put your names down for distributing just one Bhagavatam set at least between now and the 20th of September. Okay, devotees, we will end this and I will stop sharing. Let's see where I do that. Any comments? Any questions, corrections?
It's a wonderful class, Mukunda-Hari Prabhu. My realization is that Arjuna is a pure devotee, so he knows what to do. And Krishna actually, this I understand it, that Krishna actually puts Arjuna in such a place, so he feels that feeling, what he's feeling, to teach us all this lesson. Otherwise, how would you know all these, what has been spoken in Bhagavad Gita?
Yeah.
So Krishna is playing as a student, what we need to know all about the Bhagavad Gita lesson. So Krishna purposely put Arjuna into bewilderment so that he can speak through Arjuna to us. So that, because we face so many things in our life, and how do we come out? Just listening and hearing Bhagavad Gita and studying Bhagavad Gita, then we can, and chanting the holy name and purifying ourselves to the heart, for the lesson to come to our hearts, and how we can deal in it, every situation. So that's what Krishna has taught us through Arjuna.
Yes, thank you for raising that. Actually also it is said that by the end of the second chapter, Krishna has given everything, because second chapter is the summary of the whole Bhagavad Gita. So he'd given everything to Arjun. Arjun could have actually said, now, yes, okay, Krishna, Karishe Vachanam Tava, I will do as you like. He speaks that Karishe Vachanam Tava in the 18th chapter. In the meantime, he's asking so many questions, not because, because he needs to know. He's the Nitya Siddha, but he's asking questions on our behalf so that we get a chance to hear this properly. So yes, thank you for making that point.
Also, maybe Krishna was making him feel that way. Otherwise, he would be asking so many, series of questions.
Exactly.
Krishna made his mind like that so that he can ask questions.
Absolutely right. Yes, thank you.
Like playing a drama.
Yeah.
In a battlefield. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you for raising that. There's a question here on the iPad. 1 second. It's from iPhone. I'm not sure who the person is. It just says iPhone. And it says, how did Srila Prabhupada get the incentive? Were his parents spiritual? Yes, very much so. So Srila Prabhupada's parents were very devotional, and they brought him up as a devotee. When Prabhupada was very tiny, he was still, I think, 5-6 years old. He insisted, and his parents got him Radha Krishna deities, which he worshipped. He did his own worship at that young age. Also, he was very keen on the Rath Yatra. So his father made him a small cart. So when the main Rath Yatra happened, Prabhupada and his friends, little boys, they would take that little cart and also join the big procession. So yes, he was a devotee right from the beginning. So thank you for raising that. Let's see.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes, Hema Mataji.
Yes, Prabhuji, thank you for that wonderful Gujarati poem. It's obviously lot of lessons from it, but it reminds me of the Abhaduta speaking to King Yadu, and the lessons learned from the 24 gurus, almost kind of similar, some of the similar, not characters, but the spider and that, and the bee.
Yes, thank you for making the connection. Yes, you're right. I didn't think about it, but you're right. This is just gurus that he speaks about, right?
So much we can learn from other people, from things around us, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, it is, exactly. So we can learn all these lessons. Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Meena Mataji.
Oh,
Hare Krishna. Sorry. No, I'm just saying that, like, I was saying about 24 guru, like Dattatreya.
Yes.
It says who has 24 gurus, like, sang the song. It's the same, like, the Pamro and, like, all of them. It's Dattatreya who made them guru, like, it's 24
Yes.
guru.
Exactly.
This elephant and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. And Falguni Mataji, you got your hand up.
Yes, Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I think the poetry was so well explained and about the senses. I had one question. When you mentioned earlier from Sri Prabhupada's purport about that tongue is the only sense which does two jobs. What about the nose and the ear? Because I think nose does the breathing as well as sense of smell.
Yeah. But the thing is, you see, Falguni Mataji, thank you for raising that. But when you talk about these organs, we talk about a sense, because breathing is not any sense activity. Breathing is a natural function of a living entity. So it's not a sense, but smell is a sense activity, right? You are attracted to sense, but breathing is not that you attracted to. You just have to do it, otherwise you die. So that's, in that sense, there's only one sense and one sense object that the nose is attracted to, which is smell.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and similarly, the ear is interested to sound. It's just interested in sound.
Okay, because balance also sometimes connects to the ear.
Yeah. But again, those are not sense object. These are not vishayas where we will get in trouble with.
Yes. No. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Falguni Mataji. And Divya, you've got your hand up.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. It was a lovely poem, the Gujarati poem that you sang. So thank you for that. And whilst you were reciting that, I thought of the meaning about the five senses, and I kind of compared that to the Vaishnava Pushtimarg side of their practice following Vallabhacharyaji, Sri Mahaprabhuji. You talk about the five senses, that if you can, Srila Prabhupada said, if you can gain control over the senses, then you'll be in control of yourself and therefore your destiny, and take you to the Lord. And so in the Pushtimarg, in the Vaishnava Pushtimargs, they believe that all the five senses should be engaged in seva, service to the Lord. And also when Srila Prabhupada said, and from the other verse, he was saying that to have control over the tongue, and you say there are two things, so taste, but also, if we learn to control our tongue, the way that we speak, that would solve so many problems for humankind and in our personal lives. But also, I thought about chanting, that if you just use your tongue just to chant, that will pull you through, that will solve all your problems also. So I just drew those parallels.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much, Divya. That's very, very nicely explained. Yeah. So you're right. If that's the best thing, if we can actually get our tongue to chant continuously. Prabhupada, you say, 16 rounds, not just 16 rounds. We should be chanting 24 hours. And sometimes we think that how is it possible? We're gonna have time to eat, we have time to sleep, all that, right? But actually, my Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Charu Maharaj, was saying that it is possible. It is possible because your soul, the soul doesn't need to sleep. The soul doesn't need to eat. The soul can be chanting. So if you actually make your progress to Prema Bhakti stage, to the highest stage of Bhakti, at that time, your soul will be chanting all the time, right? And you will feel the bliss. So like that. And again, talking about Prabhupada on his last moments, and I think I mentioned this also a couple of classes ago, that when Prabhupada was leaving his body, literally the last few moments, few seconds, and he had his mouth a little bit open, and Bhakti Charu Maharaj was actually feeding him Ganga Jal through the mouth. Everybody knew he was just going to leave now. And one of his godbrothers, he was right next to his head, and he said to Guru Maharaj, look, he's still chanting. So even at that time, when his soul already almost gone, his tongue was vibrating in rhythm to the Mahamantra. So yes, people who are at that stage can chant all the time. But thank you for raising that, Divya. Very, very nice point.
Hare Krishna Mukunda-Hari, Prabhu. Just,
Yes, Balika Mataji.
just an information from our disciple group. Also, we received this message about Mahatma Prabhu giving this. I think you may have known, giving lots of sessions of chanting the holy name, and he's making a lot of group, so you can everybody can join in and online and. It's in Indian time, but you need to see yourself where you are, and you can change the time and you can set yourself. So it's a set of 3 a session, which I think, I mean, I did join in Manor once, and he really gives a wonderful session of chanting the holy name. And this is the only thing can take us back to God.
Absolutely. Yes,
So
yes.
it's a very nice session, and I booked it, encouraging the Sangha group to do this. So if everybody, it's really nice.
Yes. Thank you so much, Balika Mataji. That's a very good point. Mahatma Prabhu is amazing in terms of his tips about good chanting. Right. Any other last comments? Anybody before we close? All right. Thank you so much, devotees. I hope everything made sense. Please do look after yourselves, and I will see you next week. Hare Krishna. Vacha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhubhyev cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo
Namo Namah. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, everybody.
Thank you, devotee. Hare Krishna,
Thank you,
everybody.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.